pleased to bring you today's event. Just before we get started, a few quick bits of housekeeping. Please keep your computer on mute throughout the presentation. In the very unlikely event that we are the target of a Zoom bombing, we will end the call immediately. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have time for questions. So please submit any questions you may have using the chat function of Zoom. With that taken care of, let's move on to our program. At UJA, we are always on the lookout for opportunities to showcase the rich and eclectic culture of Israel. We want all Albertans to appreciate the many extraordinary faces of our Jewish homeland. So when we learned DJ Schneeweiss, an experienced go-between for Canada and Israel, was available to speak about the National Library, we seized the opportunity. Today, DJ will help us experience the splendor, depth, and breadth of Israeli history and culture through a peek at important and unusual pieces in the National Library Collection. And a virtual visit to the library's spectacular New Jerusalem building and its extensive digital resources will show us Israel's modernity and technological leadership. Don't be surprised if after this talk, you put the National Library on your Israel to visit list. Our guest today is well known to some of us for his years as Israeli Consul General to Toronto and Western Canada. DJ Schneeweiss is a former Israeli diplomat who is now working with the National Library of Israel on its partnership building and global outreach. After making Aliyah from Australia in 1987, DJ received his Master's of Arts from the Hebrew University in 1990 and joined Israel's Foreign Ministry in 1994, where he built a distinguished career serving as advisor to several of Israel's foreign ministers, press secretary at Israel's London Embassy, where he was recognized as the most effective diplomatic spokesperson in London, deputy ambassador to China, consul general to Toronto and Western Canada, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Director of Digital Diplomacy. Since leaving the diplomatic corps in 2019, DJ has been working as an independent consultant advising private companies and public institutions on their strategy, communications, and international relations. He is married with 2 children and lives in Jerusalem. DJ tells us that he has fond memories of a tour to Alberta early in his posting to Toronto as general consul. Please join me in warmly welcoming DJ Schneeweiss.
Thank you very much, Daryl. Can everybody hear me? Can I get a sign of hands from Susan or somebody? Yes, you can hear me. Wonderful. Okay, so we're off. It's a pleasure to be here and to reconnect again with Alberta, with Edmonton, and with Canada more generally. I feel very, very privileged in the first place to have been appointed and to have served in Toronto and visited Western Canada on many occasions. But the way life carries you forward, I had not expected to have the opportunity once again to be in touch. But having discovered the National Library, something that an institution that I hadn't myself been familiar with before, it really is a great source of joy and pleasure to be able to reconnect with Canadian friends and to make new ones as well. I'm going to give a bit of a tour of library as Daryl mentioned, but I want to first thank the UJ Federation of Edmonton for hosting this event, and also the Edmonton Public Library for joining with them in hosting the event. And I want to thank everybody also for making time on a Sunday morning when you've probably got plenty of other things you could be doing. So thanks for making time to join us. I hope you'll find the next 45 minutes or so as compelling and as engaging as I find the library, and I'll certainly do my best to try and convey that excitement to you. What I'm going to do now is just share my screen so we can look already and make this a sort of relatively visual experience for everybody. It's just, there we go. And if Susan or Karen, can you tell me when that comes up? And then I'll know that I can kickstart. Okay, great. So Our stories, our library. The National Library of Israel doesn't only belong to Israel. It is there's a library whose collections and whose ambitions are relevant and touch on the lives of the Jewish people around the world, and indeed all of humanity. And I'll explain to you a little bit why in a minute, but firstly, let me just go through some of the history, just to give you an introduction. Before the history, of course, I think it makes sense to sort of try and get a take on why a library is such a central piece of Israel's story. As we can see here in this quote from the late Rabbi Sachs, whose first yahrzeit we're commemorating this weekend, we all know from the Jewish prayers on Rosh Hashanah, we say, Kotvenu b'Sefer HaChaim, inscribe us in the book of life. Everything we do, everything of Jewish heritage revolves around words and letters and books and stories. And so it's almost, when you think about it and you think of Israel and all the times many of you will have visited Israel, you've never been to visit a library when you visited there, perhaps because we all hold our books and our texts so close to our own lives that we have libraries at home and so on. But nevertheless, the country, we weren't aware, or many people aren't aware, that it even had its own national library. Let me tell you a little bit about that background. We actually do have a national library, have had one for 120 years. It wasn't always called the National Library, but even in the first years of the return to Zion in the late 19th century, there were, Susan, I'm seeing some people that are entering the waiting room. I'm getting a notice on my thing, so if you could, just to let you know. But the library was originally established in those first years of the Zionist return to the land of Israel in 1892. You can see the picture of the building here of the first library. And it sort of says something again about our story, that while they were, sort of clearing the swamps and building the first very rudimentary settlements and communities, the people who came here, mostly from Europe at that time, wanted to bring their books as well, wanted to be surrounded by the books and by knowledge and by the heritage that they were bringing with them. And you can see a picture of the early version of the library's reading room on the right-hand side. This picture here that I'm now showing shows an armored vehicle carrying books from the library, which in the 1920s had already been relocated and become part of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem on Mount Scopus. And in the War of Independence in 1948, Mount Scopus, of course, came under attack, and the library and the books, most importantly, not the building, but the books had to be protected. And so here we see a picture of those books of heritage being protected on its way down from Mount Scopus into its temporary residence in the center of Jerusalem. The library, as I said, became part of the Hebrew University already in the 1920s, and it has served as the central library of the humanities at the Hebrew University ever since that time. The building you see here in this slide was built in 1960 and has served the library very, very well for the last 60 years. And you can see on the left-hand side of the picture how the reading room looks in its current, one of the reading rooms looks in its current form. But already in the late 90s, it was understood that a library, and if it really wanted to be relevant, had to reimagine what its role was in the 21st century, how it was going to deal with the digitization of life and the kind of, the ability of people to search online and all sorts of other changes that were happening in society. And a very sort of long and deep process of evaluation and thought was put in, and a new version of renewal process was launched. Before telling you about the renewal, let me just give you a window on the collections of the library, which is, of course, one of the most exciting parts of the library. And here you can see, coming up on your screen any second now, is a list of all of the different holdings of the National Library. We have over 1.5 million books, over 1 million photographs, thousands upon thousands of ancient and modern maps. We have handwritten, oh, excuse me, I just realized my power is running low on this computer. I forgot to plug it in. I'll be back in 1 second. There we go. Apologies for that. That was, I got everything set up except the power. Okay, so anyways, you can see all the numbers here. The collections are vast, they are immense, they are deep, and they are very varied. It's full of rich different things, Hebrew manuscripts, Arabic manuscripts, archives of personal, of leaders, of writers, and so on. All these collections are organized in sort of four general sort of themes, if you like. The first is our Judaic Collection, which is the largest and most comprehensive collection of its type in the world. It is uniquely rich and diverse in its scope. You can get a sense here from this photograph, or these photographs, some of the types of books that we have there. On the left is the Gershom Sholem Collection, which is the world's largest collection of books and inquiry into the field of Jewish Kabbalah and mysticism. There are things that have been recovered from various Genizas around the world. On the bottom left, you see an Ethiopian Sefer Torah, an Ethiopian Torah scroll, and so on. The collection is immense in its scope and really quite unique. The world's greatest collections of Haggadot, of Ktubot, marriage certificates, and so on and so forth. The second general area of the library's collections is its Islam and Middle East collection, which offers a real sort of counterpoint, if you like, an alternative perspective on the Jewish story. And of course, offering insight into modern Israel, into the region, and into the context of so much of what has happened to the Jewish people through the centuries. Again, here we have beautiful illuminated manuscripts, newspapers, and all sorts of other elements that make up what is recognized as one of the most significant collections of Islamic and Middle East culture in our region. The third element of the collections is the humanities. Again, a sort of a fundamental cornerstone of any humanities library, with items on classics, philosophy, the history of letters and the words and books, and of course, aspects of Christianity, which again are quite relevant to the Jewish story. The manuscript you see behind the words that I've written here is actually the handwriting of Sir Isaac Newton. The library by happenstance came upon a collection of thousands and thousands of documents of Sir Isaac Newton, including his own sort of theorizing and philosophizing about religion and the nature of science and God and so on. And these papers are some of the more exquisite and unusual pieces that the National Library of Israel holds. The final sort of element, a key core component of the National Library's collections is, of course, our Israel collection, which fulfills our role as our national, as our central institution for national memory, and one where we try and collect and document and preserve and keep records of any piece of creative activity that happens here in this country. The piece you can see behind, again, on the screen is the actual handwritten draft of Israel's national anthem, Hatikva, as written by its author, Naftali Herz-Imber, in the early 1900s. Again, when you get to see these handwritten pieces and things like that, it gives a vibrancy and excitement to the knowledge of these things, instead of just being a piece that we, oh yeah, I know there's an anthem, suddenly you connect to it in ways that you wouldn't otherwise do. So let me give you a couple of quick, exciting elements from these treasures. What you can see now coming up on your screen is the hand-scripted writings of Maimonides himself, of the Rambam. He wrote, can't see it yet? You're muted, Susan, so I can't hear you, but it's okay. I got the thumbs up. So we're seeing here a handwritten manuscript of the Rambam, of Maimonides himself, his Mishneh Torah, where not only is it his own version, but if you look at the top right-hand line of the right-hand page, you can see his own edits of his own work in his own handwriting. which is, pretty extraordinary stuff. The next thing that's going to come up on your screen is one of the what's known as the Damascus Codex, which is one of the original codexes of the Torah, of the Holy Scriptures that were written down and to serve as the base for any scribe to then copy from. And we have various copies of these very rare codexes, including some which were smuggled out of Syria with the help of, amongst others, of some wonderful people from Toronto. Another piece that I think a lot of people find very interesting are the writings of Franz Kafka. There was a long legal argument over who should own and possess these writings, but that argument was won by the National Library. And we have his personal writings and many things in this, perhaps Kafka, and the next thing I will show you, give you a window on the nature and the excitement of having people's archives. Because when you have an archive, you can then see the thinking and the process that goes behind the artistic creativity of so many people. So the next thing I'm able to show you here is Franz Kafka's own dictionary that he had written in his own handwriting, of course, where he was learning Hebrew. So he is a writer that everybody knows of from his literature, but he's not known as someone who necessarily sought or was able to converse and to write in Hebrew. But here we have his own personal Hebrew notebook. And just to give you a sense of how these things work, you can then access this, and I'm going to show everybody later how you can access all of these kinds of things. But individual items like this can be accessed within the library catalog, and you can then download them and you can embed them in a project and you can share them with others and you can print them up as a PDF and all the rest of it. So this knowledge isn't just there because we own it and we have the notebooks. It's there for people to enjoy and to benefit from and to be able to learn from and experience themselves. And we are putting in huge efforts to make that possible, as I'll describe in just a minute. Some of the things from our Israel collection, I mentioned, we have the personal archives of Shai Agnon and many other great Israeli writers. We have a phenomenal collection of posters, which in their own way document and tell the story of our country through the decades. A glorious collection of photographs of Israeli life through the decades. And as I mentioned, when we talk about the archives, for example, you can see here the handwritten version of Lu Yehi, Naomi Shemer's famous song from the 1973 war. Again, it really is special when you're able to get so close to these personal things. One of the most interesting archives only recently acquired is the archive of Hannah Senesh, the famous poet and war hero who was executed by the Nazis in Hungary in 1944. And we have some of her writings, which are some of the most well-known writings in our cultural history, including songs that many of the people here may have sung as children or even with their own children at summer camps and so on. But here, for example, we can see the last letter that Hannah wrote, and this was found in the coat pocket that she was wearing on the day that she was executed. And if you look in the middle of the page, it says across that her all my acquaintances and relations are cross with me, that I never write, and are perhaps even angry with me. Please try to explain the situation, if possible. If not, they will forgive me later. She knew what was happening to her, and she wrote this letter so that her brother may be able to convey that message. Again, a window on people's lives, a very touching and moving element of our archives. Another element of the library's holdings is its glorious collection of maps, and I've just given you a taste here of just a few of the kinds of maps that we have It's the largest collection of maps of the Holy Land and of Jerusalem ever assembled. Many of them are from the Middle Ages and from Europe, which interestingly show a wonderful sort of European and often Christian perspective on what the Holy Land looked like or what thought it looked like, and so on and so forth. It really is a beautiful collection of maps, including exquisite details such as we can see at the bottom there with the story of Jonah included in the map. The maps were used as ways of telling stories, not just as ways of describing physical location. So, on to the library's renewal. As I was saying, in the 90s, having served as the national central library for researchers and for scholarship, it was recognized that the library had to turn itself into something that belonged to everybody. And a huge process of renewal was underway. And at the core of the renewal then was an effort made to pass legislation which grounded the National Library status as an independent statutory institution, free of any political influence, but also separate from the university. The library now today stands as its own institution, not just as part of the university. And within that law, the mission of the library was defined as follows: to collect, preserve, develop, and endow collections of knowledge, heritage, and culture in general, and those of the Jewish people, the state, and the land of Israel in particular. Now, when we break down what it means and what it takes to collect and preserve and develop and endow, you can see that the library has a huge mission. And while perhaps many of us might think of a library as a place which collects and preserves and offers access to its collections and to its books, the concept of endowing those collections, of handing them down, adds a whole new dimension, which is very much the driver of what is turning the library into such an exciting place. One of the key elements, or if you like, the two key thrusts that the library took upon itself within this framework, within this renewal over the last 20 years, has been to enhance and sort of absolutely strengthen its ability to provide access and engaging access for everybody to all of its collections through two key pushes. One is to build a brand new building that is fit for the needs of this century, not the last. And we'll get to the building in a couple of minutes. The second piece is a mass digitization, not just digitizing, but a huge rethinking and imagining of what kind of needs, what kind of platforms, what kind of digital services will students, will all people require, will be most suited to the needs and interests of the public going forward. And if we look at the digital piece first, obviously now it involves taking them the digitizing, the taking of the photographs and bringing things online so that they can be seen. But it's actually far deeper than that in terms of imagining what needs there are and so on. And we'll get to some of those things in a little while. I like this picture of the big modern semi-trailer taking some books away from the library, being taken to Germany of all places, but to Germany, to the Google headquarters in Germany, to be digitized as part of a collaboration with Google. And I think this picture sort of is in nice dialogue with the earlier picture that I showed you of the books being saved from Mount Scopus during the War of Independence. And here they're being saved in a different way. They're being digitized so that there should be access, free and unfettered access to them for all posterity. And the digitization project is very much about that, and you'll see some examples of it in just a minute. The second element of the renewal, if the first element was to provide the platforms for people to access knowledge, so the new building, which we'll talk about, and all of the digital platforms, the second key thrust is taking that word to endow the cultural heritage, taking it and translating it into a huge array of proactive, deliberate programming to bring that knowledge into people's lives, not just to wait for people to knock on our door and say, I'm looking for this or I'm looking for that, but rather to proactively engage with the public to create the kinds of events and opportunities for people to encounter and enjoy the riches and the insights and the inspiration that can come from the library's holdings. And the library today is already, and its ambition is to continue to grow as a center of culture, as a global center of culture and education that is providing content and basically enriching people's lives everywhere. I think the quote that will come up on the screens in just a second from the chair of the board of the library, I think, tells the story. The library, it's not a museum. It's not a place where you just go to see things that happened before. It's a living bridge. It sees itself as a place which is meant to connect the wisdom of the past, to connect generations to each other, to connect people to ideas, and indeed to connect everyone with the opportunities to live even more fulfilled, even more inspired, and more well informed and enjoyed lives. The library, the kind of programming that the library has been able to produce over the last 5 to 10 years is very rich. Of course, during COVID, some of this has changed, and much of it is, of course, now online. But the type of programming, whether it's concerts or symposia or conferences or lectures or debates, all these kinds of things which are deliberately done in order to encourage people to come to the library, to enjoy, to be inspired, to be provoked, to be engaged by the content. And you can see from some of the pictures here of people in the audience from various events that the library has held, that, you know, the lucky ones who have either been here during these events or who live here do get to enjoy and to play a role in this content. But it's not just for the adults, it's also as an educational institution. The library 10 years ago, there was a rule that no children were allowed. Nowadays, the place, again, COVID restrictions notwithstanding, the place is teeming with high school students all the time who are coming through in various programs and various opportunities to enjoy and to taste and to participate in the library's offerings. Interestingly, many of you know about in Israel that we're a high-tech country, and of course, the study of physics and computer science in Israel has grown over the last decade or decade and a half, and that's not surprising. But one of the corollaries of that is that the study of the humanities, of history, literature, philosophy, and so on, has decreased. And one of the missions that the library has for itself is to change that trend. While, of course, Israel must continue to excel in the sciences and in technology and so on, we can't allow ourselves not to excel in these other areas as well. And the library has as its mission to lead a transformation of humanities education in Israel, and to bring as many teachers and as many students and as many people as possible into these programs that allow us to celebrate and enjoy our cultural and intellectual heritage in those traditional fields as well. So, having talked all about all that sort of thing, I'd like to introduce you to the new home of the library before then giving you your own personal tour of how you personally can access all of these treasures that I've just been describing. But let's just spend a couple of minutes on the building itself. It's designed by the famous Swiss architects Herzog de Meuron. These were the architects who built the Bird's Nest Olympic Stadium for the Beijing Olympics in 2008, if anybody remembers that. They're highly regarded, world-renowned architects, and they took the mission that was given them and have translated it into a building that reflects in the most profound ways the values and the purposes of the library in its understanding of its renewed mission. And perhaps the key theme of that is this question of openness and accessibility. Whereas knowledge once was there only for the privileged, only for those who were, you know, with a PhD and who had the special card as a member, as a reader of the library and so on. Nowadays, the idea is the exact opposite, that the knowledge should be available to everybody. And as you can see from this rendering, unique almost amongst Israeli buildings, there is no fence around the building. There is no obstacle of any sort, quite the opposite. The architecture itself is inviting you in. You can see inside through the glass. the concept, the value of access and openness drives what this building does and says right from the get-go. Now, if we look at that stopped. There we go. The purpose of the building, as a quote here from Lord Rothschild, I'll zip through it, but it's a place that should inspire learning, harmony, and intellectual pursuits, and encourage and nurture the best aspects of Israel's democratic society, a center of learning, knowledge, and humanity. Of course, the Rothschild Foundation had joined with the government of Israel and the Gottesman Foundation in helping build this new building. You can see here the entry where you will enter. This is directly opposite the Knesset, right in the heart of Jerusalem. And you will enter the building from above. And as you enter, you will encounter this vitrine, this glass wall, where you can already see the books. And I'll give you a sense of that in a second. But first, I wanted to show you, not only can you guys see these renderings from the architects, but I can show you a picture here of the actual construction as it was. This picture was actually taken 2 or 3 months ago already. But the building is happening. It's alive. It's already up well above ground, and it is due to be opened already in 2022. So we're already getting near completion and the excitement of the building actually opening. But when you walk in, you will encounter this sea of books, this beautiful circular structure on 3 floors, and it is visible to anyone who walks into the building. And what you're effectively experiencing is you're encountering this well of knowledge, a well that goes down through the 3 floors, and they contract in size. So it's like a funnel, and the physical sense of being drawn into something that is deep and that is profound and that is there for you to touch and enjoy is very strong. As you go further down, some of the books that are held in these different locations are the more rare books, the more exciting ones, even to the point where we have the special collections room, which is down the bottom of this rather special staircase. I'm not going to be able to show you every single aspect of the building, but you can already get a sense of how sort of enticing it is. And for those of us involved in talking about it, and of course those involved in building this building, it really is a very exciting project. The building will of course have an education center for children and students to enjoy and benefit from everything the library has to offer. And the building will also have a permanent and temporary exhibition spaces. So it will be a venue where people will come to visit more than once. It's not just you've seen it once, you've seen it and that's it. It will be a place which will always have something more to offer, always something new to offer. It will be a venue for concerts and performances, the size, sort of the auditorium is a sort of close to 500 seat auditorium, which is a size that is not, that is sort of, it's a space that's not really filled at the moment in Jerusalem. So this will be a popular venue, even for events that aren't directly related to the library. And interestingly, the auditorium has a sort of two-way back screen to it, where people on the outside will be able to experience things that are happening on the inside. Some very creative and deliberate architecture, again, with that sense of openness and accessibility as a key theme. And here you have a rendering again of what the library will look like of an evening in Jerusalem, that sense of light emanating from these windows, a place that will draw people in from every walk of life, and of course not only from Israel but from around the world, for as of next year and for many years to come. This final rendering is the one that's my favorite just because of the lighting, but it really gives you a sense of how you'll be able to see into the building even from the outside. And here, just in case you think these are all just pretty drawings from a very clever bunch of artists, this here is an actual photograph. This is already from 6 months ago of the building. This is a view from the current home of the library, looking out across the university campus to the new building, and behind it, the Knesset. And for an even more up-to-date photo, you'll see one coming up on your screens in just a second. This is from a different vantage point, and it's a more aerial vantage point, but you can see already the facade of the building is already even much further along. Again, it's already the physical presence of the place is really quite something. NLI and me. How do I, as in how do you, how does everybody on this Zoom connect to all this knowledge, to all this richness? Well, it's easy, and there are so many doorways and so many entry points. I'm not going to have time to go through them all, and let's look at my time. I've got about 5 or 6 or 7 minutes here, but I'm going to try and give you a quick window on as much of it as I can. And let's just hope this all works. Here we go. We'll open that out. Here we go. There we go. Great. So this is a wonderful new program that I learned from one of my colleagues. And so the NLI is all about bringing knowledge to life. And I'm going to walk you through here quickly how you can discover and explore the collections, how you can connect and enjoy, how you can play and learn, and of course, how you can see more about the library's new home. What I'm sharing here now, I'm going to take this link and put it in the chat because this link is available to everybody. Why can't I put it in the chat? Hold on a second. I can't see. Okay, I'll put it in the chat in a minute. There's the chat. There we go. And I'm just going to put it there, everyone. Here we go. Okay. You all now have the link to this document. I urge you, don't look at it now because you'll get distracted from what I'm saying. But when you go home tonight or this afternoon, as soon as we get off this Zoom, all of these resources will be yours at your fingertips. This entire web page that I'm scrolling through now is yours to use and to enjoy and to share. So let's look at the first one. Discover. Okay, everyone everywhere can explore NLI's collections, its archives, and its primary sources. If I link here in the pink thing which says NLI website, I'm going into it. And hold on one second, I just wanted to do one thing. Here you can see okay, you can see here the front page of the NLI's website, which has current information, popular topics. You have links here to explore the collections. You have a link to the library blog and so on. This is your first port of call, but certainly not your only port of call to discover and explore aspects of the library. I am not able to see this. Right. Okay, and the second one, let's just give an example then here. You can discover the photos of the library or the map collection as I described it. Let's just say, look at the photo collection. I click here on the photos link. And what you see then coming up on your screen, hopefully in any second, is the National Library's photography collections. And if we scroll on this part of the website, you can see photos from Israel in the 30s and onwards.
You're still not seeing it, DJ. I don't see it.
You're not seeing anything, or it's just?
I'm still seeing the National Library photo, the main building.
Okay. Can you see it? Okay. Go back to this. If I click on photos now, let's see what happens. Does that come up? The National Library photography collections? No.
I don't see it, no.
Are you sharing the right tab?
I believe I am. Let's start again. I'll stop share and I'll start sharing again. Let's see what happens. Okay. And we'll do share screen. And here we go. How's that?
Nothing yet. Yes,
Do you see the National Library's photography collection?
yes.
Great. If I now scroll this, you can see photos from the 1930s and onwards. You can see a particular collection known as the Meitar Collection, which has 100,000 photographs in it of particular people. The Dan Haddani Collection, which has a phenomenal array of photographs, more from the last 40 years or so. A collection of portraits, and so on and so forth. Again, if photos are what you're interested in about the story of Israel, this collection is very much something that you can enjoy. I'm going to have to, this is unfortunately, my screen here is blocking my view to press my own buttons. So I'm working a little bit difficultly here. But anyway, there are more things here. So that you can explore the content all by yourselves without any problem. If I go here, by the way, just to search the catalog itself, again, you can go into this link and you can search the NLI catalog. I already did a search this morning for Edmonton, and it shows up 186 results. If you look on the right, you can sort it by the availability, what type of thing, and so on. And if I scroll here, some of these results, a book that many of you may know, A Light into My Path, the story of H.N. Solomon of Edmonton, the first century of Jewish life in Edmonton and northern Alberta, etc., etc., etc. Okay, your stories are in the National Library of Israel, because the National Library of Israel is not just the National Library of Israel, it is the library of the Jewish people. It tells all of our stories. And in that way, it really is relevant and interesting. And, again, I can't encourage you enough to go and explore all this stuff. Let's go to the next section. How can you connect to the library? So there are many ways of connecting, and you'll see it on this Padlet, on this set of links that I've shared with you. We have a page called Culture at NLI, which is our platform for all of the presentations and lectures and discussions and so on. And when you click on that, you'll see the current events that are planned, and you can also browse previous events that have been recorded and that are there online. The Librarians Blog has a phenomenal array of stories from behind the scenes, stories behind the collections, behind the item, which are a lot of fun. NLI at your service. If I just click on that, you'll see you can contact a librarian. You can do it through WhatsApp or through a chat or through email. The librarians will help you. This is available here at your service at the top strip of our website. You just click that and you can connect to the library in that way. What else was the last one? We have a monthly newsletter, which I urge everybody to sign up to. And that way you'll be informed of the goings on at the library, and you'll know about major events, and you'll be able to sort of track the kinds of work and engagement that the library is involved in. Third thing that I wanted to focus on, and this one is way too rich for me to go into, we don't have the time, but to learn and to play and to enjoy the content. As I said, the library takes its job of endowing the knowledge that it holds to this and future generations. It takes that job very, very, really seriously. And there's so many ways you can enjoy it. So Education at NLI is a website with a huge array of content that on any and every subject. If I go down here to the Yom HaAtzmaut link, which is just one subject that I'd sort of prepared, so you can see here that material comes up with a resource pack and videos and worksheets and lesson plans and all sorts of stuff that anyone, whether it's a teacher or a parent or even a student, can access and enjoy, and you can use it to whatever purpose you have. Chanukah is coming up, so we could go on to the Chanukah activity page, and you could find here printable activity sheets for your children or for the children in your kindergarten or in your primary school and so on. The opportunities here are never ending. There's an escape room program. There are all sorts of other exciting content. If you're interested in Israeli elections, there's a whole collection of Israeli election posters, Rosh Hashanah cards, compare photographs from then and now. And this is just a taste of what's possible. If there are any educators amongst the participants today, I refer you to some of the videos that you can see here, webinars that have been prepared by the NLI education team to help convey and assess or discuss important issues using the primary sources of the National Library. On the left here, where it says Double Date Webinar Series, you can click there for examples of a series that's been done over the last 12 months, taking the Israeli national calendar and using it as a platform for people everywhere to understand Israel better, but also to grapple with key issues. We have the anniversary of the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin coming up in just a few days. And if you see here the Double Date episode about Rabin Memorial Day, how we can argue but still stay connected. How do we grapple with such a wrenching issue? These are the library has content and it has pedagogic guidance on how these things can be addressed. And if you are an educator, there are links here on how you can connect to all the education resources. Finally, they're here at the bottom of this Padlet. You can all log on and watch later. Is a beautiful movie about the new building, and of course my details and our call for support. Of course, all of this ambition and all of this activity doesn't come cheap. The government, of course, is a major funder of the library's ongoing budget, but to really fulfill our ambitions, we need and we rely on the support of supporters from around the world, of which we have many, thank God, but there's always room for more. And if anybody feels minded, that is, of course, very welcome. But again, all of these links, all of this richness, all of these resources are yours. They're in your hands now. And I encourage you to make whatever use you can of them. Take the time, explore, discover. I have to admit that some of the things on the website are not as obvious as we would like them, because it's a brand new website and it is so big and so complex that not every aspect of it is working perfectly, but our immense digital team is working on that too. And so if something doesn't quite work right for you this time, come back again in a month and you will find that it should be fine. But all of these links are working, and they are a great resource, and they are yours. I think with that, I'll stop talking. I'll leave the screen share on, but I think we'll open it up to questions and to see if I can provide any answers to any questions that I haven't already covered in my prepared remarks. Thank you.
Thanks so much, DJ. And just in terms of questions, I think the way we'll handle those is if anybody out there has questions, we certainly welcome them. Maybe the easiest way to handle that is if people could put them into the Zoom message chat here. And if you select me, Daryl Antel, and send the message, I'll try to moderate through the questions, and I'll pose them to DJ to handle. While we give everybody just a little bit of time to type those out, and then I can go through them. I do want to thank you again, DJ, for giving us this tour of the library and everything it has to offer. Certainly not an easy task to do in about 40-45 minutes, considering how large an institution and a project the National Library is. But I particularly enjoyed seeing all facets of the library, also its architecture and how it's meant to convey its mention or its mission, as well as not only the content it has, but how to access that content. I particularly liked seeing the photos of things that I feel connect you to the history and the past a little bit more. For example, when I saw that photo of the handwritten version of Hatikva, it gives you an extra feeling or connection to the past, whereas so much of what we see right now is content is created digitally. So you don't get that feeling of what it was like to actually happen, but to see someone actually writing out Hatikva, it gives you
and to be honest, Daryl, I've been in the room when they pulled out letters written by Napoleon, and the letters written by Hannah Senesh that I showed. and other things. It really it's like it's a physical experience, and something, as you say, on the digital nowadays, we all get used to this sort of flat experience that's intermediated through a screen. But the physical experience of being in a place, being surrounded by all this heritage, all this culture, all this deep learning, it's quite moving. And something maybe that's also relevant to say is that the library is a big place, and its ambition and its scope is vast, but at the same time, it's a really personal place. You can explore your own genealogy. You can explore your own personal story. You can look up your father or your mother or your great-grandfather, or that rabbi that your grandparents told you was part of your family, or the city that you know that your ancestors came from, or whatever it is. There is so much there that is actually very, very personal, very sort of, if you like, low scale, small scale, alongside this sort of the huge national, sort of historic scope of it all. It really is a place of, it's really quite special.
Absolutely. And maybe I'll just take the prerogative to ask you my first question, if I will, as chair, as people are still typing things out here. And that is, I'm sure after what we've seen, all of us will, next time we can make it to Israel, would love to go by the National Library, but even in the best of times, it's hard to go to Israel quite often. And now it's even harder. Are there going to be virtual programs and things like that that we could attend?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things there in the Connect section is culture at the National Library. There are programs on all the time, lectures and different ways of bringing the collections to life. So I highly recommend that you sign up to the notice there, and you'll be then informed of anything, and you can play with it and see which kinds of things you're interested in. You can explore previous lectures and so on. So that's just at that level. There are often cultural festivals. There's an annual festival of Jewish liturgy and song, which the library produces. There's an annual festival called Ramadan Night, which is all about how Ramadan, the Arab festival, the Muslim festival, is celebrated within Israel. And this is a collaboration with all sorts of parts of Israeli society to help amplify that part of our society. We have seminars and symposia, and there's any number of cultural and intellectual pursuits happening at the library, which are available online. Again, if you sign up to the different newsletters and so on, you'll always be able to be informed of them. Again, if you're interested in the educational content, you can sign up to those newsletters. And for sure, physically, everyone is limited at the moment, but we're very aware of, and part of the mission of making all this knowledge accessible to everybody is to make it as accessible as possible online as well as on site.
Great, thank you very much. You know what, I haven't seen any questions coming to our chat box, but that might just be a testament to what a great job you did. Oh, wait, I've got one right here as I speak. Do you mind if I pose a question to you?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. What are the policies for accessing the rare artifacts? Are any available for viewing by the public?
Absolutely. Again, many of the things, if you go into just the library catalog, and you type up anything, let's say take the one that I mentioned about the Rambam, the Maimonides, his own hand scripted writings. When you find that there, you'll then be able to explore it. It's going to be highly digitized and fully referenced and tagged and so on. So you can go in behind the document, where it was found, how it came to the library, who owned it, and all that sort of thing. And you can download it, and you can print it, and you can share it, and so on. So there is a huge amount of effort being put in to make all of this stuff as accessible as possible. Interesting, the word you used, Daryl, artifacts. One thing that distinguishes the National Library, say, from the Israel Museum, is that the library is all about if you like, words, and the printed word and letters, we don't hold things like Chanukah or mezuzot and things like that. That you can find in other places, but anything that is to do with the story of Israel itself, so that includes photographs of modern Israel, but newspapers and newspapers from around the world, anything to do with the Jewish journey, both in Israel and beyond, is there. If it's taken some sort of form using words, it'll be in the National Library.
We have another question here that has actually sparked my interest as well, because something that really stuck out to me during your presentation was this idea of an endowment function to a library. And something I hadn't thought about before. I always thought of something like, if I wanted information, I would go to them, but this is telling people this is out there, this is something you should explore. And the question we have here is if there's another model out there that has done that the National Library is trying to use as a guide, or is this something pretty unique or new to libraries in general?
I think Israel's National Library has the benefit of doing its renewal after various other libraries, national libraries in particular, have gone through a similar process. If you look at the British Library, they have all sorts of services and aspects to do with British life. They provide, computer training to people, which, is not the sort of standard sort of operating procedure for a library that many of us would have grown up with. But I think libraries, like many cultural institutions, are looking for ways to be relevant. They're sitting on this trove of knowledge and of documents and so on. How can they help people, benefit from that? So we're not alone at all in this process. But I think we've come up with, a pretty compelling understanding of what it takes and a strategy to deliver those products. And again, the strategy doesn't only depend on Israeli government input. There is a lot of anthropic input, and we certainly need more to fully realize the potential. But the strategy as it is not unique, but it is very well formed. And there is a fundamental appreciation that, knowledge is the one thing that if you share it, you don't lose it, you only actually multiply it. It's not a zero-sum game. And making this stuff available and helping younger people explore and connect. We have a bar and bat mitzvah program. It's a brand new program where kids can use library resources to develop help their education, their preparation for the bar and bat mitzvah. And then they, as the last activity in the program, they can upload their own scrapbook from their bar mitzvah, their invitation or whatever it might be. And that becomes part of the collection of the National Library of Israel. And so there are all sorts of, like I say, the strategy is very well thought out. And as the library proceeds to implement it, more and more people will see that the library, as I said, it sees itself as very much not only as the Library of Israel, but the library of the Jewish people. And it sees itself as playing a role in Jewish life around the world. And through that, in promoting knowledge and understanding and enriching life for not only for all Israelis, but for Jewish people everywhere and for people everywhere. So we may not be unique, but I think we're pretty special.
Absolutely. I do want to apologize. We have a few more questions here, but I want to be sensitive to our schedule here. So I am going to turn it over to Karen Herring to give some concluding remarks. And of course, a formal thank you. And I wanted to thank you as well, DJ, for your presentation today. Karen?
Thank you.
Hi, DJ. First of all, Daryl, you took much of what I was going to say, so I apologize if I'm reiterating a bit of what he said. My name's Karen Herring. I'm a UJA supporter and volunteer with the Jewish Federation of Edmonton. But on behalf of the Jewish Federations of Edmonton and Calgary and the Edmonton Public Library and listeners today, I want to thank you, DJ, for your most enlightening and interesting presentation on the National Library of Israel. I was fascinated, like DJ, with the historical pictures from a century ago, and I'm so glad you added them to your presentation. I'm not sure if I'm the only one who's lived in Israel or made many trips there and have never put the NLI on my agenda, but I'm confident your talk will inspire many of us to add this stop to our next trip. And for those folks who have not had the opportunity to visit Israel, as you have shown, they will find much on the NLI website to explore from afar, including many of those outstanding digitized educational resources, manuscript, and themed online exhibits. As a retired academic librarian and now volunteer with several local Jewish libraries, I've made use of the NLI catalog many times in my hunt for cataloging records for Hebrew materials, and I found it most useful. But today's introduction will motivate me and hopefully many of your listeners today to explore the other available online resources available on the NLI site. I've also had experience digitizing resources at the University of Alberta many years ago, so I can appreciate the huge undertaking such a project is, and I truly commend NLI for its efforts. As we are all aware, throughout history, the destruction of Jewish books has been a common theme in an attempt to annihilate Jewish knowledge and culture. Consequently, the intent to increase the visibility and accessibility of the National Library of Israel to Jewish communities around the world is a most meaningful and appropriate venture. Thank you for enlightening us on this hidden gem. Thank you to everyone for attending. Today's event, along with many other great cultural and educational events, are made possible through the generous support of UJA donors. If you have not made an annual gift this year, I ask you to consider doing so. Thank you again, DJ, and I hope that the NLI website will continue to expand and really bring us closer to all the culture, books, materials, etc., that are available through the National Library of Israel.
Thank you very much, Karen. It's been a pleasure being with you, and I wish everybody enjoyable and enriching encounters with the National Library and everything it has to offer, as well as everything else you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DJ. That was fantastic. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy the sunshine.